Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev, and thank you, the entire team. May I request the moderator to hand over a small memento to all the panelists. Thank you. We'll move on to the next session. There is no coffee break as such, but people who want to go for coffee could go in between and come. So we would move on to similar to yesterday afternoon. Coffee is served outside, so those of you who want to have in between could go and come, but we would go ahead with the session because for want of time.
One humble request as well. CAHO is conducting a study on impact of accreditation on hospitals and laboratories. So the survey forms are in your delegate bags. So request you all to fill the forms and drop it to the CAHO counter in the exhibition area. So your feedback will be prestigious. So looking forward for your feedback. And those who haven't got the form, they can get it in the lunch time. They can get the forms on the counter only, and they can fill it. Thank you.
Can you do it later? Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, I just first one, this copy paste.
Yes. We are happy to have with us the CEO of two primary accreditation bodies in the country on healthcare, that is NABH and NABL. We are very fortunate to have them here and have them to come for this session. So this session is going to be more of an open house. If you have any very specific questions, you could ask either the NABH CEO or the NABL CEO. A few points to note before we proceed is that, if there are particular things which you need clarification in the standards or some processes, you could ask. But other things like, suppose there are difficulties or some things on implementation, that could come as a suggestion which we could take for further changes whenever it happens. So with these few introductory notes, I request Dr. Kalra, who is the CEO of NABH, and Dr. Relia, who is the CEO of NABL, to please come on stage. I am sure they need no introduction. All of you are very, very familiar with them. They are, consult physicians of Astute, and they have also been in quality journey for more than a decade, and they head two premier institutes in the country, and over to them. So I think to just set the ball rolling, probably, one of the questions, sir, I will probably put the first question. One of the questions they ask is that, is there any way possible that, for want of, say, logistics and other things, both this could be combined? This is one question which many people keep asking us. So one audit which could address, or one audit system which could, say, which goes, maybe it is extended by another day or so, whether this could be combined together is something which commonly comes up.
Good morning, everybody. The question asked is quite important because there are two types of laboratories, I would say. One is housed within the hospital and one is an independent laboratory. So, and actually the standards are different. The laboratory accreditation follows the standard 15189 ISO standard, and NABH has derived its own standard based on international ISQA standard. So they are quite different. The only thing common is the laboratory within the hospital. So some part can be done. But I think when we go into technical details, like the enable assessors go into quite details, the test methods, validation, the sampling has been done. So all these things have to be taken care. Probably on NABH, Dr. Kalra will respond, the dimensions are slightly different.
I think you have answered. Both, ideally, they cannot be combined together during the one assessment. Because NABH assessors evaluation will be done as per NABH. Ultimate intent is same. Accurate results and systems play in place in the laboratories also. We, under the NABH program, we also include lab services, and the methodology little bit changes, but ultimate aims are same. Further we can work out if there is any possibility of merging. We'll see. At the moment probably we cannot, yeah.
See, one thing can happen is, see, like the hospital, a big hospital applies for accreditation, which has a laboratory itself. NABH has granted accreditation looking into the details. Maybe they use service of one NABL assessor and give a preliminary accreditation that the hospital is accredited along with the laboratory. But I think to demonstrate the technical competence of the laboratory, independently the laboratory or in the hospital may go for accreditation at a later stage.
Okay. I think that makes a very clarity, just to summarize the points what both of them have said, that NABL, I think if whatever my knowledge goes right, that the tests are accredited, so it could be, one particular lab where, X number of tests are going in for an NABL accreditation. So in addition to the laboratory per se, it is the test. So there may be a lot more technicalities in that particular aspect of it, whereas NABH looks at the whole organization as a whole, from the linen to the laundry to the fire to every aspect as a whole. So I think there are, because of the certain differences between the process and between the grant of the final accreditation. So I think although it may not be very appropriate to do it, but I think it's a very good step that both of them have come forward and said that maybe we would do something like a pre-assessment during an NABH assessment, so that they can tell these are your requirements so before when they come for the final assessment. So I think that is a good process which would but as an assessor and as being part of this, only thing I would say is don't duplicate your documentation. So somewhere one is there, you give a reference in the other. So do not duplicate it. Don't say, as per NABH, this is what we follow, and as per NABL, this is what we are. You follow one process which addresses both the requirements. Next, any questions from the audience to start with, or any comments? Dr. Venkatesh?
Thanks to both Dr. Kalra and Dr. Anil Relia, I belong to both the parties. I am an assessor there, principal assessor, I am a lead assessor here. But I will tell you, Dr. Murali, want to clarify one small thing. Our NABL and NABH accreditations are voluntary, both are voluntary, nothing is forced on anybody. However, in NABL, when the laboratory applies for accreditation, they can select certain scope, certain tests only. Not all or not everything. Therefore, the laboratory will go for only clinical chemistry, maybe only microbiology. They may not go for histocyto. Whereas, in the hospital standard, it is all activities, including the structure, process, outcome aspect.
Absolutely.
Therefore, as per NABH standard, the entire laboratory activity is assessed. As far as NABL is concerned, implementation of ISO 15189, compliances to NABL 112 is what assessors look into. And we don't even walk into that area where they have not applied for accreditation. Am I right?
Perfect. I think that gives a full clarity. Thank you, sir. Questions? Yes.
It's nice that NABL and NABH, they both widening their scope of taking in more and more people. So they have introduced entry levels and part accreditation and all those things. But it is leading to a little complication, and I got some feedback from the people who have got it, that people who are going for partial or entry level, they apply for the company's panel based on these, say CGHS and all those things. We have a talk of even insurance company IRD also going for it. Now this is leading to a little resentment for people who have gone for full accreditation and people who have taken partial accreditation or entry level, as we can say. Now we have to address this issue, and I will request you people to deliberate on this and find a solution, because I got a very strong feedback before I came here from some of the members who have taken this.
First of all, I would like to say incentives are just drivers for improving the systems. That should not be the only motive. The improvement in the system and the processes as brought by the various standards, whether it's a full accreditation or an entry level. And intent of that rather should be appreciated. And definitely we are working, everybody knows full accreditations, what are the benefits, but all, and entry level, what are the limitations. Even public is also made aware, and any certified hospital under entry level program, they have to display at what level the certificate is. And I think for in terms of incentives, entry level as such, at the moment, CGHS has not recognized any additional incentive for entry level at the central level. In some states, definitely they have recognized entry level with minimum incentive to 2 to 3% only. And as far as full NABH, they get advantage of 15% above the basic rates for CGHS procedures.
Just to add on to it, I think let's go into the intent of it also. There are, as someone had pointed out, 80,000 hospitals in the country, and today less than 500 are NABH accredited. So it came from, various sources, including the ministry, that there has to be something which can make hospitals start the quality journey. So that's why, as you said, it is an entry level. It is a way where they can start the journey. And, as you all know that, that's only the stepping stone, and they will probably go into a progressive level and then go into the final level. So as hospitals, sometimes we feel threatened. See, I am NABH full accreditation. The fellow next to me is also putting an NABH, entry is there, but he is still having this. What is it? I think all of us have a social, commitment also to ensure overall healthcare improves. It's not just about ourselves. So that is why there is a differentiation. But at the same time, there has to be somewhere where this has to be started. And so there are stringent criteria, which has been devised in entry, progressive and final. And if they are not following that, any one of you could bring it to the notice of the Secretariat, and certainly if something like, for example, if they use the full symbol accreditation, which is not right, then the Secretariat would take actions. Yes.
in our hospital to learn the best of another hospital down the road or something, because running a hospital has become much tougher nowadays than it was when I was here 8 years ago or 80 years ago when we started.
Benchmarking and sharing best practices is the question.
Now I think all the accredited hospitals, most of them, I still say as on date 100% we are not getting data. Almost as around 80% of the hospital, they are sending regularly every quarter the 11 indicators which are mandatory to send data to NABH. And we are now analyzing, and we have already defined, depend upon the number of accredited hospital, which cannot be a true representative of the whole country, but whatever from the accredited hospital at the different cities, we have defined the national benchmarks as well as the state benchmarks. And against those national and the state benchmarks, where the hospital stands, that feedback we are sharing with the respective hospitals. Although this whole data or the indicators are not being made public, because and still a lot to be done for authenticity of and validation of the data before we make it public. Probably we have to sensitize the media first, as well as then the various stakeholders to allow display of this data on the website or the public domain. And probably we need to organize a separate meetings for sensitizations of various stakeholders when we are ready to display this data in the public domain.
Good morning, sir. This is Satish from Chennai.
Yeah. Just, I'll just wrap it up. I know what you're coming to. No, I'll put it this way, there are 2-3 things, I'll just add it to what sir has said. I'll just sum it up. One is best practices. Most of the assessors are ambassadors of best practices in the sense that they have visited multiple places. And I'm sure all of you would have come across some time or the other, which is what we also tell them during our various conclaves, that if you find, okay, this practice is probably better, it's not, we come there not to only find non-conformances. We also find to say, okay, you're doing something, this is good. You're doing something X, this could be better. So, one, it comes definitely indirectly or directly in terms of when you have your assessments. Second is, your own assessors, your own people who go for other places, bring them best practices. Third is, we have, situations where some of these things are put up in the website, But yes, it is not mature to the level what is there in the West. So as I said, a decade-old organization cannot be compared with something else which has been for more than 5 decades. Point one. Last point is regarding the data. We are 100% not sure whether the data which is sent is authentic and valid. So there is, in spite of all this, there is a lot of data mining which is happening, with which we will get some amount of validity, which is what Dr. Kalra sir was saying will be shared with you with the 11 mandatory indicators. Because many hospitals feel, if I show my actual rates, next time when the NABH people come for assessment, they say, hey, your rates are high. Why is it? So I may get a NC even before my audit starts. So many a times they do not share the actual data. That is where the problem comes. We know that they are much, much below the international average, which is not acceptable. So these are some challenges. Yes, your point is taken. It is all being addressed. Probably in the next, say, couple of years, there would be more maturity and you will find more of them, which is available, in a public or in individual communications to the hospitals. Next question.
Yes, sir. This is Satish from Chennai. When you're going for entry-level NABH, with the first session we attend the CM scheme, they given a book and given a structure of NABH things and we have followed that. After that, in a book